Hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about what the meaning of friendship means to me. Now I know that a lot of you know what friendships generally mean, but the reason why I'm here to talk about this specific topic today is because there are a ton of people in the world, myself included, who are a lot more skeptical with being friends with certain individuals that don't see you as an actual friend, but instead as someone that you know from constant interactions that has no interest in hanging out with you, unless you plan on having a big party or an event that's worth the time for the people in question, although it may vary for everyone else. Or they consider you as a friend due to sharing the same passion with one another, such as participating in the same sport, wanting to make the world a better place to live. The list goes on and on and on and so forth, as there are many reasons why we end up being friends with someone in the first place. They think of you as someone who is easily the most outgoing person that they have met, and also sees you as someone with whom they can get along with very well. However, there will be other people that have never met you before, and people who happen to know you but have never seen you as a friend will only be friends with you for all the wrong reasons, such as taking advantage of you, wanting to be friends with you if you end up becoming quote unquote popular, etc. Trust me, I speak from personal experience, as I've gone through it all, from elementary school all the way up to high school. But I know that it is not the case with individuals that only have good intentions with being friends with anyone. Now, when you look up what the word friendship means, it will tell you a couple things, such as a state of enduring friendship, esteem, intimacy, and trust between two people. And for a more specific meaning, a relationship of mutual affection between people. It is a stronger form of interpersonal bond than an acquaintance or an association, such as a classmate, neighbor, coworker, or colleague. Nowadays, it seems like everyone has their own meaning, since their own standards are completely different than what I just mentioned. I will admit that I personally have standards of my own as well, simply because I want to see whether I can get along with them or not, depending on their personality alone. Starting up basic conversations that could potentially lead up to being friends in the long run, and if they are someone who I could trust to go talk to just about anything in general that occurs within my everyday life on this earth, and a lot more. When I was younger, I wanted to be friends with everyone that I crossed paths with. Sadly, not everyone appreciated my kind gesture and wanting to be friends with me. Therefore, I decided to stick with the same friends that I had, since no one else that was outside of my small friend group wanted to give me a chance, and instead thought of me as a weirdo who was desperate to be their friend, or to be a part of their own friend group as well. Eventually, I wanted to hang out with other people that had a pretty big group when it was time to go to lunch and recess. In retrospect, I should have let my other friends know that I was going to distance myself from them so that I could start getting along with others that I wasn't used to hanging out with, instead of giving them the wrong message without telling them. And then I started to realize that for the first time in my entire life, I was actually getting out of my comfort zone. But I will point out that I should have also invited my other friends and see if they wanted to hang out with the other guys to whom I wanted to spend time with myself. It definitely does suck not being able to help out my friends and making friends with everyone else that they're not too comfortable in being themselves. I'll also say that when I went to go chill with a few guys that were not in my friend group, I immediately started being someone else that I was not. My plan was that if I was pretending to be someone else, I would have been accepted into their friend group, since for one, it worked out for this particular individual. And two, if I was being myself the whole time, I would have most likely been kicked out or berated for even attempting to physically show up right in front of their faces. Long story short, be grateful for what you have, because you'll never know when you'll have to start making new friends if you're no longer in contact with the same people that have supported you along the way without returning the favor in your end. Since then, I started becoming more vigilant as to who I wanted to be friends with, as I realized later on that I got to meet those who have great personalities, while there were others who were toxic beyond belief. I also started to be a lot more grateful with my new friends that I felt comfortable talking to. There were also a few points in my life in which I couldn't fully trust a few people who have claimed that I was their friend, only to end up betraying that trust by taking pictures of me without me knowing, and later posting them on their story, talking about me behind my back, throwing a small eraser at me so hard that it felt like the person was using a slingshot, even though I haven't done anything to this person. It just goes to show that you should always remain skeptical about others who happens to display a villainous side towards you. And if they start doing these bad things to you, then you'll know right then and there that they're truly not your friend, and it's just someone who happens to hate your guts for no apparent reason. You might start to ask me, do you have any best/close friends? Well, throughout my life, I've only had 3 close friends overall. The only reason as to why I've had a limited amount of close friends is because they barely hurt my feelings, unlike some of my other friends, even though it's likely that they could have been pulling my strings here and there. For one, it was never my type of humor, and two, I didn't want to do the same thing to someone else as they might interpret it as something entirely different. And I didn't want to ruin my friendship with them over a few jokes that I'm not familiar with. Overall, it was really hard deciding as to who else deserved to be my best friend, as everyone else have already had their own close friends. In my case, I just saw most of the people I knew as acquaintances or just as friends and nothing more. Throughout my time in school, there were a few people who were pretty close to being one of my close friends, but then as I got to know them a lot more, it later became apparent that I would end up being just as friends with them instead, as I wasn't able to talk to them as much, and there was barely any strong connection amongst ourselves as time went on, as much as I would have liked to. But there was actually one exception. And this individual helped me open my eyes as to how important it is to gain friendships, even when I was struggling on socially connecting with other people that I've never met. I've also learned to relate and to understand everyone's mental and emotional health when they start to display an array of emotions that may come off as questionable. But when you start to assist somebody to get him or herself out of that situation, you end up feeling like you've gained their respect. Therefore, I've always thought that by doing so would have formed a friendship between myself and someone that was involved. It just felt really good for this individual to be extremely nice to me to begin with, as this person had a ton of charisma, was very enthusiastic around others, and was overall such a caring soul. What made me respect the same individual even more was that when it was time for lunch break in the middle of elementary school, I had a teacher who would encourage me to invite a few people to hang out with instead of having to deal with another day sitting at a table all by myself. And so I started to invite the same person who wanted me to feel included, and a few friends that this specific person was friends with. I was really happy to have these moments in which I got to interact with other individuals the same age as me. And the fact that this person was more than willing to help me become more social instead of letting me turn into a full-on introvert, to the point where making friends would have been a lot harder for me to fulfill in the first place. After going through a ton of great memories with this nice individual, I honestly thought that this person would have potentially ended up being one of my best friends. But as time slowly passed by, we both started hanging out on our own friend group, respectively. And another reason as to why it didn't necessarily end up the way that I was seeing things through my own point of view was because there was this one time in recess in which I wanted to hang out with the same people that I would spend time with at lunch sometimes. But then this person told me that I could also hang out with a friend who also struggled on socially connecting with other people, just like me at the time, who would eventually become one of my 3 best friends. And as a result, I decided to hang out with this individual as, for one, I felt bad for this person, and 2, I also felt like it was the right thing to do because since this person reached out to me, was also lonely, I thought nothing more than to return the favor to someone else who also wanted to be a part of the fun as well. And I ended up making my friend stay. So the moral of the story is that there will be certain people in your life who will only see you as a friend unless you both have a really strong friendship between one another to the point where you guys become best friends and never lose communication. I ended up staying as just friends with this person instead of becoming one of my best friends. And a few reasons as to why this person was a possible best friend is because this individual would always make me smile in some way, shape, or form. I was barely sad when this person was around. Everyone else wasn't even remotely close to having the same qualities as this person did, and besides a couple people. This person was also the reason that I wanted to keep going to school instead of wanting to stay at home, avoiding to deal with the unfortunate circumstances that I had to put up with on a daily basis. I guess you could say that this person definitely changed my life for the better. And I can say that had I not met this person from the beginning of my school journey, my elementary school days would have been entirely different, and I probably wouldn't have made too many friends if I'm being honest. All in all, I'll never forget who was the first ever individual that helped me fit in, and therefore has gained my full respect ever since. So I want to get into the topic by talking about complicated friendships. When you end up becoming friends with someone, at first everything seems to be okay on both ends, but when this person starts to show some form of disinterest in the friendship for whatever the reason may be, you start to rethink and remain unsure as to whether or not you guys still want to be friends with each other. Either way, it's better to communicate with your friend in question and have a one-on-one conversation and discuss if there's anything that might have slipped through the cracks and see if it can be resolved. As long as both parties cooperate and would hopefully come to a consensus. That way, it would be a great way to understand as to where both of you guys currently stand at instead of jumping to conclusions and assume that things didn't work out with one another. Another thing that I wanted to mention here is that you should always help a friend understand where the boundaries are set at between you two, and to also explain that in the sense of friendship, they have nothing against you, but that they do have stuff going on in their lives, just like everyone else does. Because in my mind, it's one thing to accept a friend's offer after being asked to go hang out and do whatever it is it may entail, but then it's completely a whole other scenario when you think it's a good idea to ignore/avoid your friend entirely without ever responding with an update through phone calls or text messages, even though you know for a fact that you didn't do anything wrong to this person. If you guys ever go through a situation like this, God forbid, this unfortunately means that you're not a priority to him or her, and that this is also very likely that more than anything, they only see you as a friend. So let me put it this way. To anyone who's confused as to where I'm getting at, what I mean is that they only see you as a cameo, or as a one-time appearance, or even as a special guest that they haven't seen in a very long time. They don't see you as a recurring character in their life, such as a best friend, close friend, or even as a boyfriend/girlfriend, or someone that you're currently seeing. And if they did, they would absolutely have the time to pursue you and start a conversation from there, without going into extreme measures, obviously, instead of making up pathetic excuses or not even responding back for that matter. And listen, if any one of you guys have gone through something similar like this, for future reference, please don't take it personal, unless you know that you've been annoying this person for not respecting their own personal space and whatnot. Otherwise, it's going to reflect badly for your character. They'll probably not even be that comfortable around you due to the unusual stuff that you've been doing around this person. Trust me, when I thought I was the issue initially, I thought I was being betrayed, lied to, taken advantage of, and not being taken serious, etc. It turns out that my mind was playing tricks on me and took me to places in my mind that I've never gone to before. I was gaslighted into thinking that my friends are nothing but manipulators who only wanted me to think of them as a friend who was willing to help me out, but instead I would get left behind in the dark without having any of my so-called friends look for me. And when my friends ask me why it's so hard for me to trust people in general, that's why. And to finish off my statement from earlier, if you happen to create group chats that you and your friends are a part of, you would expect for them to answer to your DMs outside of the group chat. But I think what makes anyone feel worse on the inside is that if they don't respond to your private text, but decides to respond to you or to anyone who sends anything at all through the same group chat, it's like they're personally avoiding you at every corner whenever you try to text them to their own Facebook or Instagram account without involving anyone else. And that's when my mind was making me think of others in a different light and whether I can confirm any suspicions that I have for them or not, just as long as I have concrete evidence. Trust me, if anyone else gets into this predicament, I can't really blame them if they say that they're disappointed at them if they're being treated that way. When you start to question whether you made the right choice with being friends with these certain people, it becomes clear that you can't even call them as your friends right away, and instead giving some thought to it for a few minutes before saying so. In my own personal opinion, when I have my friends tell me that they really appreciate me and the friendship that I have with him or her, it's really hard for me to believe, and there are a few reasons to this. For one, actions speak louder than words. And as I believe that words without action being taken in some cases are not enough to express gratitude in the friendship. Two, if they really appreciated me or my friendship, or both even, they wouldn't be avoiding me at all. Rather, they would help me understand what exactly he or she is referring to. Everyone's different, and you can't expect everyone to understand certain things that are being told from another person's point of view. And lastly, they would also come up with something that may sound convincing, but instead you start to wonder whether they're telling you the truth or not, only until they decide to respond to you. I just think that it's not worth lying to your own friends over something that's not such a big deal. Because if they still go through their own plan by low-key lying to you, even though they know exactly that they're lying, then you would ultimately feel like you've been lied to, even though you trusted and respected them as a friend. Which is why I still have a very hard time believing in anyone, but I do give everybody the benefit of the doubt before doing so. It's always important to not take your friendships for granted, as it will come back to bother you until you either admit whether you see them as friends or not. In the greater context, and what you guys should take away from this speech, it would be that you guys shouldn't take your interactions with your friends for granted, as once again, it will definitely backfire on you big time, which can ultimately mess up your mental and emotional health if you don't apologize or admit what went wrong in the friendship. and patch things up from there. I really do believe that there are redemption arcs in all of us, and I also give my friends 3 chances, or to put it this way, 3 strikes are out. Friendships in general give out a lot of benefits that can help us live our entire lives as well, such as preventing loneliness, support us during hard times, making ourselves feel like we belong in this world, and so much more. I hope this speech helped you guys have a better understanding of what friendships truly mean, and by appreciating them to be a part of your life, because you never know whether you'll see them again or not. So make sure that every time you're with your friends, make sure to value your time with them as if it's your last. If you guys got to the end of this video, thank you guys for listening to my first ever speech. And stay tuned for more speeches that I plan on doing, besides some new content that I want to create as well. Let's all hope for a better year, starting with 2024. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.